back to Shrimpers TV for another Shrimpers Talks. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, Colin Murray. Colin, thank you for coming on and joining us here today.
No worries, Liam.
How's lockdown been for yourself then, the last few months?
Well, it's all perspective, isn't it? It'd be a lot worse if I was out having to work every day in the front line. But still hated it. Still absolutely hated it. I've got I'd show you, but it's such a mess. My living room, I'm not going to show you, but just in the corner there's a microphone and it links up to the internet. I've done most of my BBC shows from there.
Yeah.
And it's only been the last 3-4 weeks that I've went into the EFL and Quest. So it was all pretty much at home. Pretty much got social distance, took it very seriously. I live in the centre of London, so it's a very high coronavirus rate in my borough. Yeah. So for the whole time, you've got to be really careful with it and still have to. So I've been, and I found it really dull. I found it hard to be locked away. I'm not a hugely social person, believe it or not. You know, I'm not like, I don't go to the pub 3 nights a week. I don't, you know, I'm not one for sort of that. But still, like, you take your freedom for granted. So when it's not there, and even going to I'm so lucky. Like, I've got a big park just, you know, half a mile that way.
Yeah.
Regent's Park. And I don't know why I'm saying that way. Like, you'd know that way. Not that way. And even then, it's still a boundary, you know. Okay, I can go to that and that's it. So it's been nice to go and do some things cautiously. But yeah, I would give it a big fat 0 lockdown, but it had to be done.
And obviously, we've seen the introduction recently over the last few weeks of football. It started off with the Bundesliga. The Premier League was then reintroduced with no fans. In regards to that, we know you're an avid Liverpool fan. What was it like for you to see your side win the title when Chelsea beat Manchester City?
Yeah, it was surreal, to be honest. So, first of all, Bundesliga coming back had no effect on me. I think it's the same for you. You haven't watched any football with your team. And your mum has, because your mum's a Liverpool fan. But she knows. But you still won't be getting the buzz because you're not playing, right? And if Southend United aren't playing, you won't get that. So for me, it was just about my team coming back. I think it's the same for everyone. So we had sort of looked at it, and we had said, right, we'll probably win it in our next game, and City will win, probably, or get it. It's not going to be. So nobody met up. So my scouts mate I go to games with lives in North London now. So as it starts getting towards them, we're all like, oh, what's going to happen here when we're all in our houses? And then it was just like being up to like 4 or 5 in the morning, but on your own and on Zoom. Like we thought about like it, because at that time you can meet in a park and socially distance. We're like, should we go to a park? Would there be any open? And then we're like, yeah, but we want to watch what's happening. And so we all ended up really, I just stayed up to about 4 or 5, talking to my mate Sesh, talking to Tom, in the WhatsApp groups and whatever. So it was a bit surreal, but it was brilliant. Like, it's so funny. I mean, Liverpool are going to end up with more points more points pre-lockdown when it happened than any team can get in the whole season. So actually, Liverpool did get enough points in the regular season with crowds and with normal football. So I do love when people talk about it's not Val. It's like we could have forfeited every game 3-0 and we still won the league. So it's just been brilliant. It's been a long time. And I thought when Liverpool won the league, I mean, I was born in the Liverpool supporting family, so no choice and got lucky, really. But I think I always thought it would be by a point, you know, like I always thought we'd win the league again by a point or goal difference. I never thought we'd win it by Christmas where we were sitting going, yeah. And it was weird, like the various moments. Actually, it's actually like, things like when we drew to United and then when we lost our first game, it was a bit like that. They were the moments we actually went, we're going to win this. Because everything else was quite surreal when it was like win, win, win. Yeah. And now I don't know how the players are even bothered. I don't know how they're playing after that huge high. I mean, we get beat by Arsenal there and stuff. And it is, I know it sounds like strange to say, but when you thought you'd never win it again or you thought you'd only win it by a point, when you're 20 points ahead, I don't know how the players do it. I'd be drinking every night. But it's been great. It's been great.
And obviously last season as well, crowned European champions. You in the fan park, you done DJing, I believe. What was that like for you? Obviously being a Liverpool fan throughout your whole life.
Definitely the best hour of my professional life, maybe my life. It was my mate Tom, funny enough, that was telling you about to go to games with. He organised that fan park. When we met, he was working somewhere within the club, but quite low down. And then he's been there now for so long. He now is in charge of sort of organising quite a lot of big fan things. So he said to me, look, Jamie Webster's playing and John Parr from Cast is playing and the Anfield rapper will you do an hour's DJ set? And he used to come out with me in my student days when I was on Radio 1. He used to come out with me and drink all my beer when I was DJing for that. He said, just do that, only, you know, add in a bit of a touch of Liverpool. And I was like, okay, how many people? He said 10,000. I was like, he's like, why? I was like, because I'm the only plastic Scouser. I'm the only one going up that don't have a Scouse accent. That's bad. And he was like, no, you'll be fine. So next day rings. It's going to be 20,000. Next day, 30. On the day of the actual event, he was like 75,000. So I was in bits, but it was brilliant. And John Barnes came out and did Rapper's Delight over an instrumental because he's an absolute legend. And it was unbelievable. Like literally on the best hour. I was so shattered after it that like by the time I got that match, it was hanging like. But no, it was brilliant. It was definitely the best hour. That was great. I mean, Istanbul was amazing. The best I've ever seen Liverpool play was that semi-final second leg against Barcelona. I don't think I've seen a team play like that for 90 minutes at that level, where it's just domination. Little things like taking the ball off the tip of Messi's toe around the back of him. Little things, you know, it was just the whole game had little moments that were just like, we were awesome, you know, from top to bottom. That was the best performance I've ever seen. It was on the cup for that.
Really?
So that was unbelievable. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people obviously remember the corner taken quickly, Origi's goal, of course, Wijnaldum brace as well. But a lot of people don't actually recognise the performance that Alisson put in that first half. I think the game could have really been done and dusted. I think it was absolutely brilliant performance by him as well.
Yeah, and you can go back to the group stage. I think last minute at Anfield, we're going through and Napoli have a one-on-one. Can't remember which player was one-on-one. And he pulled off a wonder save. And if that goes in, we don't even get through the group. It's always those moments, always. If you have a look at, like, you know, when Phil Brown took you up, you can spot 2 or 3 moments, whether it be in a playoff final or the last game of the season or whatever. You'll spot moments where you go, oh, my God, imagine if that hadn't happened. Imagine if that ball boy hadn't given the ball back quicker to our player to take that throw. Imagine if the referee hadn't given that corner that wasn't a corner. There's just always all these mad things going on. Those little sliding doors that makes football so... Oh, sorry. Got my phone. Makes football so great.
And obviously, you just mentioned there, obviously, about Phil Brown taking us up. I think for us, that was probably the highlight of any Southend fans' sort of time supporting the club. Yeah. For you, do you think with the playoffs and everything at the moment, playing it behind closed doors is the way forward? Obviously, we saw Northampton against Exeter. It's the only way to bring the clubs up. That was an absolutely dominated game, but there was a lot of talk about if the fans would have been there, would it have been a different result? What do you feel for you? Obviously, we've seen you have a massive impact in the EFL as well.
It's interesting because it's a bigger issue, really. I think there's nothing perfect, right? So whether it's opening pubs, whether it's trying to get people back to gyms, whether it's airlines, whatever it is, we haven't had a perfect solution to anything in 4 or 5 months. I've done quite a lot of work on the coronavirus on 5 Live, and what always strikes me is I haven't heard a perfect solution yet. There's no perfect solution for a vaccine. There's no perfect solution for football. So it's a bigger issue, which is what was a better idea? You know, what else could we have done? Should we have left it completely and invalidated the season and started again? You're going to say yes if you're a Southend fan, right? You're not going to say yes if you're a Leeds fan, you know, or you're a West Brom fan. You know, would the season have panned out the same in League One and League Two had they been able to play it out, which they absolutely could not have played it out? It would have been even worse, more imminent financial disaster. Who knows? Probably, of course, because you can't predict football. That's why we love it. But it's maybe one of the preferable imperfect ways to do it. The bigger worry is how does League One and League Two start again?
Yeah, of course.
Because it needs fans. It's pure and simple needs fans. It can't survive without them and it can't test. This is the biggest issue. So for your club to play all next season in League Two, I think you're looking at prices are coming down a bit, but you're still probably looking at about 300 grand's worth of testing to get through the year. Just to have a basic squad and basic staff, and that is with leaving a lot of people out of the picture. That's impossible. That would put Southend in serious trouble. It would put Grimsby in trouble. It would put most clubs in the bottom 2 tiers in trouble. And then you might think, well, for Sunderland, that'll be all right. Okay, big crowds, they can pay the testing. But they have a club set up based on the fan base that they get. So they can't open without closed doors. They can't open behind closed doors either.
No.
And the best thing I think we can get to is, a vaccine. And hopefully the Oxford one, the AstraZeneca one, that's in Brazil being tested. I think they'll probably fast track the period where they wait to see what the longer term effects are, and they'll take a few risks maybe. But I think, so fingers crossed we'll get it quicker than we think. I do think we'll get one. But it could be, for example, what's your average crowd? Do you know your average crowd? And then at Roots Hall?
I mean, I think the last few seasons has been absolutely poor. I think the last big crowd we really had was that Sunderland game. I think that was nearly a sellout. But other than that, I think we've only topped just over 7,000 fans, and when we're at 12,000 capacity as well.
Right, so you can't do it. So even that, leaving one seat empty and one person on a seat, one seat empty, one person on a seat, you're already, so you'd be down to 6.
Yeah,
I don't think, I even don't think it'll be there, because by the time football comes back, we're heading into the cold weather. So that's certainly a very flimsy option. So where we are is we got a really, really low transmission rate, but we know that it will rise because we're lockdown easing for economic reasons mainly, which is understandable in many parts. But it's whether it's going to be a slight rise or a spike. That depends if people bother to actually social distance, to actually keep washing their hands, to wear masks where applicable, and hopefully we will. And we'll only see a little rise. But I think there's a big, big push to let fans in. Football's not going to be treated differently. If you let fans in the pubs and you let fans in the cinemas, they will let fans into football. But at that separation, 1 every 3 seats, say, or let's say they say up to 1,000, that's more likely. Up to 400, up to 1,000, no good. No good. So I don't think you can overstate the problems that League One, League Two face at the moment, because I haven't heard one single solution other than fans yet again bailing their clubs out. It's going to need a massive handout for it to be played behind closed doors, and the money's there. The money is there. If the parachute payments were just, instead of 240 grand, 260 million parachute payments, if that was 200 million, and the loyalty payments were bigger, then that could be enough to pay for testing for League One, League Two, and the Championship, like that.
Yeah.
But it needs those drastic measures, Liam. It really does. People are sleepwalking towards a really, really bad place at the moment, as far as I'm concerned.
We've seen that, especially with Wigan at the moment, obviously. So the 2 dates that were put forward were September the 12th and the weekend of the 27th of August. With Wigan, we've seen that they've gone into administration. I think that was sad for anyone in the football world, because you wouldn't want to see your club go into that state. We saw it with Bury last season as well. Bolton nearly with their financial struggles. Southend could be going down the same way. With Wigan, do you think they'll be able to pull themselves out of this hole if we do come out of the pandemic the right way?
I think, first of all, on a minor point, I think you're looking September 12th. I cannot see how football comes back in the beginning of August. I think September 12th is probably optimistic. But Wigan is one of the most bizarre administrations ever. I mean, it's been well documented. We've done it in the 5 Live show. We've done it in Quest. I've done it in the Metro column. And it's a bizarre situation and of course, to go through, it's quite complicated. But one company selling to another company that is 51% owned by the guy that owns the original company. And then it's switching into the hands of a different person and going into administration in a day. So new owner in a day. It's novel. It's awful. It's almost unique. And who thought we'd ever say that about the amount of endless list of clubs that have had to go through trauma? And I think, and this is not from anyone telling me anything off the record, I just think the EFL statement, reading between the lines of it, was very forceful, and it was even telling them, right, force majeure is how you would get out. It was even telling them the best way to appeal. So I am a little bit optimistic for them in terms of they may not have that 12 points, but of course nobody's ever wanted administration appeal ever, so their history's against them. But it's such a bizarre situation. But I don't think they're going to finish less than 12 points below the bottom line anyway. They're 12 points as we talk, but of course thick and fast, you probably won't have this out by the time they play it again. But I think, like, if they were to win one of their last 2 games, 10 clean sheets in 11, they've got It's remarkable. You know, there's no players being brought in there, Liam. There's no nobody waved the magic wand. Nobody gave them 10 million to spend. It was just a team that were absolutely awful that became absolutely amazing. It's the most overlooked story about Wigan is what Paul Cook and that team have done since January 1st.
Paul Cook, he's really worked his magic here, isn't he?
Yeah. And, you know, fans are fans. I'm pretty sure if I read the fan forums on the 28th of December and then read them on the 28th of January, there'd be very different fan forums, right?
Definitely.
But, sorry to ramble. But, yeah, Wigan is just... I've never written about anything like it. And I've written about everything from Chester to Blackpool to Bury to Coventry. I've never written anything like Wigan. So I do hope they don't get... I don't think they should lose. In my opinion, they shouldn't lose the 12 points because I think it's such a bizarre situation. This isn't about months and months and months and years of mismanagement with complacency. This is about one day to the next. They were okay, and then bang. How should the club be held responsible for that? It's just so bizarre.
Yeah, and obviously, like we said, we've seen it with other clubs as well. Admittedly, at the time, maybe it was their fault. Maybe behind the scenes, it wasn't quite there. Especially at the certain situation as well. I really, like you said, do not think that they should be punished with the minus 12 points. Moving away slightly from COVID-19, we saw the departure of Sol Campbell from Roots Hall just over a month ago, I believe. What did you make of that? Do you think that's the right decision for the club to make?
Did the club make it? Did he make it? It
was a mutual decision, yeah.
I would imagine it was probably one of the rare occasions when you say mutual decision and it is a mutual decision.
Yeah.
Funny enough, the last thing I did before lockdown was do a podcast called 52 with Sol Campbell. He was one of my guests. I've always liked him. He's not your normal interview ever. He challenges you. He's got one hell of a brain. He is not cut from cliches. I think you saw that, whether it be good or bad. I mean, in your a lot of post-match press conferences, he pauses, he thinks, he picks his words well. And, you know, we're always talking about the silver spoon of successful footballers. And they come into management. Where do they come in? Did they earn their stripes? Well, Sol Campbell's had his hands dirty twice. Yeah. So I have respect for him because he's walking in. The situation he walked in with you was it one win? You were on one win when he came in?
Yeah, it was horrific. I think the performances of Roots Hall, I think everyone can agree. When he came in, we thought we finally got some stability at the club that we can actually bring in a manager who could change things. Yeah.
Problems on and off the pitch, wage bill up here, players needing to be shed, which is continuing to happen. I mean, it's hard. I mean, I don't watch week in, week out. I only get to see. I mean, he chopped and changed a lot. That, regardless of what's going on in the squad you've had, that would be a bit infuriating, I think. But you know, if he chops and changes and gets results, you look at, we just talked about Wigan, mainly because of injury. But if you look at all their different back fours they've had for their clean sheets, he's had to chop and change. He's lost player after player. So even had to play a winger in there against Brentford when they get beat 5-4, can't remember. Anyway, so that's always infuriating to fan because no matter what's going on, it's about match day. And you watched them week in, week out. You watched every minute. Effort would be a thing. I'd be looking for effort. I'd be looking for 100% effort regardless of results because you can forgive things if there's not that effort. If there's not, it drives you crazy as a fan. So I don't know who's next for you. I mean, it's either going to have to be, from what I can see, the favourites to take the job, right, are like not untried, but you know what I mean, like coming from a lower league or coming from a coaching position. And then if you go further down, who could come in? Then you start looking at some old familiar names, like Phil Brown, and you know, I think Atkins is like named quite low down the list, wasn't he? But he's on. So it's you. I don't know. Is it finding a manager that can, as you say, you want consistency? Big name like Sol Campbell in terms of, you know, let's be honest, he's earned his money, right? So he's got his money. He's had one hell of a career. What a footballer he was, and he'll be rightfully ambitious to move up. Is it about having a manager that can take a project, take you through, like a Blackpool? Although not that example in many other ways, but is it about getting through the leagues? Is it Wickham? And that idea of getting through the leagues. Someone who's going to go in there and put their stamp on it. Sheffield United. There's all these examples of teams that have done that. If I'm in League Two, I want someone to stay for 4 or 5 years. Not necessarily longer, but I want them to be there 4 or 5 years. I want them to build a philosophy. I want them to build a blueprint that young players can fit into, and I want to look at moving through. I don't want to be chopping and changing every 4 or 5 months. And I'd also want to give a manager his head to have if next season you have to finish 14th, to get foundations in place, get balance, be more financially secure, move forward as a club. Right? Yeah. Like, as long as the philosophy's right.
I think
you could go right to the highest level and the club didn't win anything for ages.
I think there's a lot of unrealism as well. I've seen in amongst the fan base. I think there's a lot of people who believe we're going to bounce straight back up again. I recently spoke to Adam Barrett and he said we can't expect to bounce straight back up. League Two, as we've seen, is one of the toughest divisions in English football, and to make the hardest. For us, I think there's so many different changes. I think bringing in different players, obviously the financial situation at the moment, it's not looking like we'll be able to do that. But the youth system came in towards January time and they put in 100% effort, were absolutely brilliant. A few of them signing pro contracts. Do you think the youth system is going to be vital to us potentially staying as a club next year?
It's vital to every club in League Two, youth and loan system. So especially when you're a club that's in financial difficulty and has had transfer embargoes and is now shedding that wage bill. But like, you look at what happened with Ollie going into Grimsby and then being right there on the brink of relegation, albeit the demise of Bury changed that dynamic. So you were like, okay, the chance to get relegated got a lot smaller, half. But he was all about finding 2 or 3 players that he could bring in for a couple of quid, that weren't doing it, but fitted his system. This is how we're going to play now. And look, it went like that straight away. I mean, the results came quite quickly. So youth, really important, but it's the youth of other clubs as well. More and more, it's the loan players coming down with the bigger squads in the Premier League that go into the Championship, some even in the League One, but Championship mainly. Championship clubs send players to League One and so on and so on. So a manager that comes in who's worked with another club for 10 years as an assistant coach, as a reserve team coach, whatever, that's not the worst thing in the world. You don't have to be Frank Lampard to have a link with Chelsea. You have to be somebody who can come in and say, I know these people. A lot of the work is done on a phone. A lot of bringing in that key. Oh, you bring some kid in who's 17 from, let's say, Sheffield Wednesday, for random, just pick a random team. Or you're bringing in a Rotherham kid who's not getting in their team, and he's coming down to you and he's like smashes it. That's what, that's so important, those deals and those relationships. So a manager who knows is good. What you don't need is Henrik Larsson sitting in the stands. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. You know your club better than me, and you should feel free, Liam, to go. You're talking absolute bollocks. But
no, for me,
I want to see that stability. And then what also happens, which is weird, which I saw with Chester, when Chester went out of business, they started in the 9th, 10th, 11th tier with the Northern Evo Stick North, as it was called then. And they won. That's the weird thing. After going out of business, getting back in a bit, they won. They were winning games. The crowds were higher in the Evo Stick North than they were when they got back into the conference. So there is something about, if everything crossed when football gets back to normal. When you were last in League Two, not that long ago, you had 3 or 4, maybe 3 top 10 finishes. You had more good days than bad. That's my point. And we supported teams no matter what league they're in. So stability, 100%. A longer term vision, 100%. But also the very aesthetic is you'll win more games next year. I agree with everything that you're saying. The idea you're going to bounce back up is you might get 100 points, but you might, in the playoffs, you might finish 9th, you might finish, don't know. Who's Ian Holloway going to ring and get on loan? Do you know? No, you don't know. We don't know what the other managers are going to do in that league. So the picture even that looks now won't be the picture in September 12th or October 12th or whenever the hell we get it going. So that's why we love and hate football, eh?
And I think we saw that as well in the EFL Quest launch that we attended back in July, almost a year ago now. Ian Holloway did say that there's a few players that we very rarely recognise, and then some that we really did see and have become world superstars. When he was at Blackpool, he went and scouted. I think one of them was out in France. He flew back over. The Blackpool owner said, no, we're not going to buy him. And about 3 years later, he's now one of the best defenders in world football. What do you think that's going to be like for managers? I think for us, we really need to find someone, like you said, who's got contacts, who knows who they can bring in and has an eye for young talent who can bring them back up and make them into real stars in the future.
Yep. Good contact at a bigger club, and that doesn't have to be that much big. I say bigger in terms of their league position and where they are, not in terms of fan base or anything. That's hugely important. But I think there's also a slight change in, obviously, the art of defending has changed massively. And while you can still get away with more in League Two, especially the referee's not saying it, but it's still no comment now. But still you're not as protected as a defender anymore. You've got much more protection to play football now in every league, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I still hear pundits say about the Championship being, a long ball, tough league. Oh, it's so much tough. It isn't. Anyone who's watched the Championship in the last 4 or 5 years knows that you don't get away with anything, right? So there's not like you get away with 2-footed tackles in the bloody Championship. What a nonsense that is. I still hear that being said. Sheffield United, when they got promoted to the Premier League, some of the idea of they were coming up with some sort of like team full of steel factory workers. Like I was thinking, has anyone actually watched them play football that's talking about them here? The dynamic football they played was, same with Norwich, to be fair, when they got promoted. So that's another thing. Implementing a style of football that's suitable for now, whatever that happens. I know, like, sorry to use the example again, but it's just because Ian Holloway's my mate. The one thing he did at Grimsby straight away is he was like, look, every time we face a set piece, we collapse. Just push forward, but don't give them the respect they can run into that space. They're not good enough. 99 times out of 100, they're not going to score with a fluent passing move of 30 passes. Get on them, get into them, be positive, score one more goal than them. But whatever it is, or you see that in football and philosophies everywhere. You look at Nottingham Forest is so different than Brentford's, is different than Leeds, but it's having that. So those young players, if they stay with you, are learning that system. The older players are into that system, so that you're if you do get promoted, you're going into League One with a running start. Because you're a club that has that potential. If you get the stage of financial stability, to every club, I think in League Two has that potential to push through if they get the right manager, the right philosophy, the right loan systems, etc., etc. So why, it can be as easily Southend as it can be anyone else.
And obviously with the EFL at the moment, like you said earlier on, about we really do not know when it's going to restart, what it's going to be like, the financial situation. How do you think that some clubs are going to be able to cope with this situation? I mean, we've seen the likes of Wickham, who have completely changed in one season. I mean, all credit to Gareth Ainsworth and what he's done at the club. But what about, like we said, with Southend and the lower clubs, Barrow especially coming up? Do you think that they will have a slight advantage? I mean, they've got a squad to build around. Injury at Southend United the last few seasons has been one of the biggest issues, I think, last season. Southend versus Sunderland on TV, they really did bring up about how we had around 20 injuries. We've always had such a massive squad that we can rotate in and out. Phil Brown was one of the first managers to bring that in before Paul Sturrock. Do you think that the lower league clubs coming up are actually going to have an advantage over us having a squad?
It depends who comes up, and it depends who the team is that comes up. So we've had some teams come out of non-league football who've had really big backing, whose project is Championship and above. And we know those teams where there's been big benefactors, big, new grounds built, real money put in. So they've walked that league, and they've gone. And then they have to get stuck into the reality of league football, because everyone is a jump. It's always a grey area that molds together the bottom of one league and the top of the other without a shadow of a doubt. I think you could take the bottom teams in the bottom teams in the Championship and play a mini tournament against the top 3 and bottom 3 Championship and League One, and that would be a fairly good tournament. I'd probably don't know who'd back to win that tournament. Actually, the bottom 3, So you can't predict the way the Bottom Championship's been absolutely crazy.
Yeah,
You'd certainly give
so
give Coventry and Rotherham a chance in that tournament, wouldn't
you? Yeah.
But I genuinely, I'm not being evasive. I at the moment, none of these things matter.
No.
League One and League Two actually happening matters, and no matter how many times I sit and try and work out how it does, the only two things I can come up with is handout or vaccine.
Yeah.
And the vaccine's maybe more likely than the handout, by the way.
Yeah.
The amount of money needed. But what I honestly, I know I don't want to sound like it's a doomsday thing, but I would not, it wouldn't even be close, I think, to the concerns at the moment of clubs. They're worried about how they can keep players, how they can still pay players. If they don't come back in September the 12th with crowds, how can they possibly come off furlough? How can they come off the government schemes? Clubs can't do it. Until we get proper regulations into the EFL system and the football pyramid, closer controls on wage bill up against revenue, a fit and proper persons act that isn't just about eligibility, which is where the legal constraints of it is now. Show me a pay slip, right? That's not where it should be. Show me a balance sheet. And I think the money from the Premier League down is huge. It's 400 million. So it's something to knock on their door and say, what are you going to do? They get 400 million a year. The problem is 260 million goes to 9 clubs max. And that's the 3 seasons of relegation. So that even distribution is becoming more pinnacle now, because as you talk about our squad going in the next season, the players that we're kicking out, getting off the wage bill, out of contract, that's probably not a bad thing at all, because you must have taken $1 million off it.
Yeah, definitely.
Over a season, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just that anyone, all those ones you were like, are you earning that? They're gone. You got to rebuild into doing that. You got to rebuild them a squad to do. But it's it's all against this COVID-19. It's all against the backdrop of it. Can any club go now to a player and say, we want you to start playing for us on September 12th, want you in pre-season in 2 weeks from now, and we'll pay you $1,000 a week, when they don't even know whether there's going to be fans there? Too many clubs. I don't think some people quite get how quickly a club can go out of business.
No, yeah.
It's not much. There's real money, and then there's assets, and there's all these other things. But in real money terms, when the 20 quids aren't coming over the turnstile, it's catastrophe,
And I think
I've depressed you now, haven't I?
No, it's not. It's actually true.
First day of your summer holidays.
Yeah, it's been brilliant.
Thanks for that, mate.
But obviously, like you said, the season at the moment may not even go ahead. Who knows? But with them 2 return dates, hopefully we can see fans brought in October. I think it was released just today, roughly an hour ago. That's what they've put forward. So hopefully we can see the season.
October?
Yeah.
See, this is the thing. The football authorities can say whatever they want about when they want to bring fans back in. Here you go. There you go. It will not be governed by. So I'm just having a look now. You're right. In fact, 10 minutes ago on the BBC. So since we've talked, fans could be able to return to stadiums in England from October. Pilots will take place from August 1st, but any stadium open and subject to coronavirus guidelines. In other words, if we all lick each other's faces, there'll be no football.
Yeah.
Simple. And we just don't know where the point is between people who are being responsible and people who aren't. It's as simple as that. We've got World Snooker Championships are in Sheffield. I'm doing that from inside the stadium. And it looks like that might be used as a pilot project. I'm presenting that for Eurosport. This is breaking news, Liam. I'm going to have to talk to my boss now.
Oh, no.
But ultimately, new codes of behaviour, social distancing. There you go. Social distancing must be observed in seating arrangements. So, in other words, they're looking to bring it back with the gaps that we talked about, and we've
almost
already
half
looked at that.
attendances, yeah.
Right. So, some clubs average attendance. That's fine. Other clubs so punished by it. So now you're talking about squads, right? You're talking about squads and being able to afford what you can afford. You might be able to fit in your average crowd into yours minus 1,000. Another club might have to have 40%, 50% of the people they had before.
Yeah.
There's no fair solution to everyone. There really is not.
There's no consistency
an absolute mess. Yeah.
I think there was a few podcasts that I've listened to recently, and a couple of them said, should the season go ahead in general with Leagues 1 and Leagues 2, obviously, we love football, we love seeing it come back, but I think health and safety is obviously the priority for most people. Do you think that they should be all played behind closed doors, or do you think that they should just cut out the rest of the next season too?
Well, the Premier League can do whatever it wants because all their money, you're looking at 70%, 80% at some clubs comes from TV revenue. So they can take the hit. So it's about how much money you make rather than can you make money. The Championship wasn't sustainable before COVID-19. You can't have 107% of total revenue being spent on wages. And of course, some clubs spend 50%, other clubs spend way more. So that's not sustainable anyway. And the EFL are saying the right things in that. And it's interesting because the PFA, they want better regulation and more transparency on wages. And the EFL want a wage cap, and they disagree on this. But what they both agree on is it has to change. So can the Championship do a whole season? But it could, if touch wood it doesn't happen, if we don't get beyond coronavirus, if we don't get the vaccine, if everything's still at half mast and half speed by Christmas, can the Championship get? I don't think they can. I don't think they got the finances to suck that up for a year. I think I think 8 games is a hell of a difference than 46. So League 1, League 2, I tell you, it's a non-starter. Like, there's no money. Like, you cannot come back without fans. Honestly, I've talked to managers of League 2 clubs, and they have just said it is impossible. So your wage bill for the year will be matched by your vaccine bill.
Yeah.
So even if you were to say we'll start the first 4 weeks behind closed doors and then we'll look to move back to fans, how can you as a club commit to new contracts with players? So you're going to say to a player, we're hoping to have fans back, which is the only way we can pay you in a month from now. So sign this contract for a year. Players are going to go up.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to agree with it. The problem is a good owner shouldn't agree to it because you're putting the club's future in jeopardy. But there will be clubs where the owner will take that gamble to get that player. We'll see that player, really good player, going to be in the top 10, top 20 best players in League 2 this year. But if we want him, we've got to commit to this payment for a year. Yeah, but we don't know whether we're going to have crowds in. Are we going to have crowds? Well, let's take the risk. And there, boom. That happens too many times at a club. I really do hope, and I have faith in it, but hopefully there'll be some form of paying for the cost of a season from the millions that come down. That's what's needed. So, and then you could look to get through the season. But without a handout or a vaccine, I would love someone to prove me wrong. I'd love someone to watch this and tweet me and go, Cole, here's the thing. Here's how we can do it. And don't tell me fans will raise the money. It infuriates me. This is one thing that has to stop. Like, Wigan fans have raised 170 grand during a global pandemic. I haven't checked it in a couple of days, probably 200 now, but it'll be close.
Yeah, I think it is.
Little kid, Jacob, I think his name was, Mum's Emma, sold his toys in his garden and raised 500 quid. Paul Cook dropped them around a signed shirt. There's no doubt in the fans, right? Their resolution to keep clubs going, but we've seen it's not always possible. We've seen clubs go to the wall no matter what their fans do.
Yeah.
I don't want people saying, well, as fans, we can whip around and get the money and out. Fans shouldn't have to dig in to shallower pockets than modern day football.
Yeah.
Which has millions of pounds to distribute better. Shouldn't have to be up to you to go and wash cars or work a summer job just to put an extra 70 quid, 100 quid a month into the football club you love. I get why fans do it. I've done it. I've given money to clubs, but it infuriates me that that's where we're at all the time. All right, the fans will get us through. Fans will get us through the next 3-4 weeks, which is what Wigan fans have done.
And I think that's the argument as well. We've seen a lot, I believe, some Southend forums as well. We've seen the argument with season tickets. I think there was about 3 or 4 clubs who have offered the option to either get them given as vouchers for their shop, keep the money at the club and donate it towards their charities, donate it directly to the club, or keep money and receive it in cheque form. do you think that we should potentially be asking for these refunds, or should we be leaving it with the club if it's not really going to make that much of a difference? Whereas there wasn't really that many games left in the season at all anyway.
I think everyone's got to make that decision. So if it was me and I was like, right, I can get that 50 quid back, well, I am lucky enough to be able to go, well, I don't need that 50 quid. But somebody else might be going, well, I love my football club, but I don't have my rent.
It's a matter of life and death, really, couldn't it?
Yeah, because I was working a 0 hours job, and there's no protection for that. In the early schemes, if you weren't protected, especially if you're 18 to 25, working to cover your student costs, you know, like you're going to uni and you were working 5 shifts a week in a pub, gone. No help. That fam might need to take back their 50 quid because without it, there's no food in a month. Yeah. So I don't think one size fits all, that, Liam. Everyone's got to look at it. Not everyone can go, I will donate that money to the club because I love the football club and that's all that matters. They may have to feed kids. So I think it just depends.
Exactly, yeah. And just moving aside from that, obviously, if you are experiencing troubles or anything, we always leave links to Mind charities, etc., especially during this pandemic. So we'll leave them in the links down below. Just moving on to your career in general, obviously, you're now working.
Let me just pause you a second. I want to say about that. I've had more requests to talk about mental health in the last year than I had in the 19 years before of broadcasting. I'm about 20 years broadcasting now. I have had more requests in the last year than I've had in the 19 years before, which is great. I've had people ring me during the lockdown. You know, we are obviously, women are the fairer sex. We know that women are way better than us. We are, you know, I look back at my life. Men aren't great at talking about things. We're not great at connecting to emotions. But I've seen a change. I've seen mates phone me during lockdown and say, how's your head? Is it good? I've rang them. How are you struggling? Conversations we're having now, whether it be football fans, male and female, whether it be just groups of blokes, way different than what they used to be. I love Mind charity, being connected to the EFL. Love wearing that badge every week. Yeah. I think it's something that we need to treat mental health like we treat physical health. If I said to you now, Liam, don't go to the doctors or the hospital unless you felt like your life was in danger, right? That's going to be the new rule. If you break your arm, can you reset it yourself? Don't talk to anyone about it. You know, if you've got an ingrown toenail, don't get up the blister. Don't even think about it. Where actually, they're the moments when you have to go, not feeling good.
Yeah.
Not when you're at that moment when you no longer are going to talk to somebody and you're hiding it. So that's the moments where you need to click in. Okay, I'm halfway up the ladder. I'm good enough, but I feel myself slipping a little bit. I'm going to just talk to a mate about it. I'm going to talk to somebody about it. And if they don't want to talk about it, talk to the next one. So it's been great. I've never had as many discussions about mental health ever, I think, as I have in the last year with people. So it's good to see. I think the conversation is changing and we got to view it like physical health. Yeah.
And obviously we have spoken about our personal issues before. We did it on previous podcasts. You can go and check them out. But like I said, for me personally, speaking out is probably one of the best decisions. I think if you're at school, your teachers, your friends, anyone, just speak to them. Anyone you can trust, your family. You may not seem like it, but please speak to them, okay? If you're not in a great mind, or if you're even in a good mind, just speak about the good things you've had at school. Go to bed, think about the positive things that you've got. Just please speak out about it, because we've seen as well the suicide rates in men between age 18 and 24 at the moment. It is shocking, and we need to get them rates back down. So please speak out and use the charities that we've got down below.
Yeah, and look for withdrawal. Look for something not feeling quite right. Unfortunately, when people get into the worst place, they often don't show it. It often comes through in different ways. It comes through in going around to talk to people. I'm going around today to see my friends and my family, and they can become quite open when they've made the decision they can't handle things anymore. It's not always looking for tears. That's the most obvious thing to look for. But look for withdrawal. Be actively. Why is my friend not messaging me at the moment? Hasn't messaged me in 5 days. That's unusual. He messages every day. Look for little things. Just pull the people up beside you. It's like a team cycling in a race, or like it's like a 4x4. That's probably a bad example. It's more like the Tour de France. You've got, you're all in this peloton together. You're all just trying to pull each other on, and sometimes you have to be the lead rider and stop the wind hitting somebody you love, and that's it. And it's just about moving in and out, helping each other. So if you know who the people are around you, make a conscious decision to keep an active eye on them. And that doesn't mean ring them every day. All right. That's just be observe, and look for little changes. And I think that's really important too.
So yeah, any issues or anything, our DM's always open. Our socials will be linked down below as well. So feel free to come to us. We're very open, confidential as well. It is us, obviously. We provide videos like this to offer support towards you as well. The Mind charity will be down below as well. The EFL doing great work with them too. Moving on to your career in general, obviously, like we said, you've been working with the EFL on Quest. We used to see you on many other radio shows. Now you're working with Radio 5 Live. You said there as well about Eurosport. What's it been like for you, sort of chopping and changing between these amazing companies and getting these sort of opportunities?
Yeah, I'm all right, but I'm not really a career presenter, so I fell into it by accident. And I like my living room here, and I like just doing very basic things. So I think I've been to one premiere in my life of a film, and that was because it was a mate's film. So I'm always working. I see it very much as a job. So and I want to have good conversations. So I'm happy enough that whether it's talking to you or going on a TV show or whatever, as long as the conversation's good and it comes from the right place. So I like the variety. I kind of had one moment where very naively just trundling along, ended up doing Match of Day 2 for a few years, and that wasn't a happy time for me. I didn't like the aesthetic of being on that sort of like very tight, restrictive show where every man is dog had an opinion on it. I'm not saying Premier League fans aren't real fans, because they are, but there's also a contingency of people that just don't know.
You can't have your opinion,
yeah. But it's there's great, I always say if you took all the Premier League away fans, they'd be fairly similar to if you went down to Roots Hall on any given match day. So you get like it. I like to just I love the variety. I love doing the snooker because I love the people, and it's still one of the few sports where you can get so close to the people who are playing it. Yeah. Like there's very few of them are media trained, and even the ones that are, I can knock that out of them eventually. And it's just this like, it's such human failure to snooker. Like one little flinch, one little glance of your waistcoat on a ball, and you've lost like 50 grand. It's like the tension of snooker is that silence I love. Yeah. And I get to work with Jimmy White. I love doing the EFL because, not to blow our own trumpet, but I think we do a good job. I think there's a lot of teams, so it's impossible in our budget for 5 or 6 of us to sit there as producers and pundits and presenter, to sit there and be like this, 72 teams, 70 as it was over the weekend. Like, you can't do it. Like, I can't watch all those games. No. So a lot of times you're relying on the forums, especially in League 1, League 2. You're relying we have a brilliant League 1, League 2 regular pundit and constant producer, and Ali Maxwell, who's just fantastic. Brilliant, and he'll be right, Cole. You remember I told you last week about this? Oh yeah, that's what's going on there. Right, well, he's changed his back four again for the 4th week running, so that's what we're going to look at. So I'll have the basics, and then he'll go, right, this is it. It's my job to tell you what actually happened in the game. So he'll be off watching someone else will be watching some. So you can get it wrong, but we're so low budget. We don't even have we can't even play commercial music. So, it's really tight, and I think we do a good job. I think it's better with us at 9 o'clock than it is on a bigger channel that doesn't care about it. At least we care about it, and fans will eventually find it. They find it in decent numbers now, but I think they'll find it more and more, because actually we extended League 1, League 2 from half an hour to an hour. We're the first people ever to do that. We fought tooth and nail for that, because we were like, the thing's always been Match of Day starts at 10:30, so why would anyone else show any football? And we were like, League 2 fans will want to watch their team. Yeah, but the number will... And I was like, well, who cares? You've got a balance between showing the football commercially and trying to sell ads, but you've also got an obligation to the football. So we need longer, and eventually we got there. It was good. We got a really good boss. So he extended the show. So yeah, I just love doing things that interest me, and it doesn't matter whether it's the 5 people or 5 million. So I've done the scale of it. So I love messing about. It's just I just want to be I don't want a big house. I don't want a Ferrari. I don't want anything. I just want to, you know, I just want to do my job, not have to worry about things. So I'm a bit unorthodox. You won't get that answer from me.
Yeah.
Like when it ends, like if I stop presenting 2 years from now and had to do, say, gardening. I love gardening. If I went to work as a gardener's assistant, I'd be happy. I'm like Ronnie O'Sullivan, like that. He worked in a pig farm. Wouldn't worry me. I like the outdoors, to be honest. I'm always indoors, so I don't have a set in my head like I deserve to do it, or I you know, it's like I have to do it for the next 20 years or whatever. Might even just, I don't know, who knows, could always have a second career. But so for me it's very normal, but I can understand if you look at it, you might say it is quite abnormal. I've just always been like that. I've just always been like, whatever I do, as long as I enjoy it, I don't care if it's cool, I don't care if it's football, I don't care if it's music.
And I mean, we saw that as well. Is it true that you used to work as a gravedigger when you were younger?
I did, I did. That was tied into wanting to be a gardener. So the only way I could do work experience and get shifts working in with this amazing landscape gardener in the cemetery in East Belfast was to also dig the graves in the morning. And then the afternoon they'd let me go out and do the gardening, which I still to this day love. So that was it. So bunch of 4 or 5 guys. One of the last places to have spades, because they used to do they all switched to machineries, little mini tractors, but this was one of the last ones to still use spades to dig the graves. And it was an experience where you don't think about it when you're 16 that it's that bizarre.
It's money at the end of the day, isn't it?
It is just digging a hole at the end of the day, like, you know. And that sounds terrible, but it is. Like when you go into work, you have a cup of tea, you have a digestive, 7 a.m, you dig it up, and then the only thing's the Saturday, which I didn't do many of those, when the actual funeral happens. That's difficult for a grave digger because he's there to fill it in. So every week he's saying this mourning and this loss. That must be really difficult for them. But they were a different breed, like, you know. They were, I mean this in a nice way. They were a strange bunch. They were lovely. But there was a really interesting bunch of people that were like, okay, I'll take graves for a living. So, but if I'd have done that for the rest of my life, I'd be a lot fitter than I am now. So,
so we saw, obviously, you started off with that. You originally done writing, I believe, and then moved to radio, and then fell into television. How did you fall from writing into radio?
Because there was a regional Radio 1 show called The Session in Northern Ireland, and they, I never wanted to do it. I was running the music magazine and running clubs and putting on bands, and they were like, you'd be perfect for this. And I knew some of the guys in there. And I was like, but it's not for me. Yeah, but you'd be perfect at it. And they actually auditioned a load of people, and lucky enough didn't find the right person. And then they persuaded me to go down. I'd just done an all-nighter with my mate watching the World Cup, because it was one of those overnight World Cups. And I'd kind of forgot about it. And then I was like, I've got to get down to that BBC thing. And I went down and did a test, and then that was it. Got the job. And that was it. I fell into radio, I fell into TV, I fell into everything. Writing is the only thing I didn't fall into. I still do my Metro column, and I've always had something to write. I'd love to do more, ideally. But that was something I actually targeted and wanted to do, and was a trainee journalist. Everything else has just been moments.
Happened,
you know. And then I think it helped me. I was never trained in it, so I went on air pretty much as me, cracking shit jokes and, you know, just being myself, loving music that I loved, saying music I hated. That's how I started, you know. I just was like, I love this, I was just enthusiastic. I think that was probably why I advanced quite quickly into National Radio 1, because I'd never been trained in it, you know. I didn't know what I was doing. I just talked absolute bollocks, and just like the way I am in normal life. I'm quite a passionate person, you know. The only time I ever got in trouble at Radio 1 was because I'd comment on some sort of government scheme or something, you know. I've always been quite passionate, so I think that comes across. But yeah, it's just really been, it's like everything, sliding doors, really.
Yeah, and obviously, like you said, you fell from radio then into television. For some of you, also, you didn't know, we've spoken about it now, but Colin works on EFL and Quest. If you don't know him, I'm surprised if you don't. I will leave a link to your book as well, I believe, that you wrote as well.
Yeah, you don't have to do that. No, but it's all right. I wrote a book called Random History of Football, but it obviously dates quite quick. But there's some interesting stories in it. But I don't even think I get any money if it sells anymore, so don't worry about it. You can link to the Mind charity. There you go. Instead of that,
there you go. Right.
Nobody needs to read my book. It's a 3 out of 5 at best.
Right. So yeah, he works. Obviously, you work on different EFL league teams. That's why you know so much, especially about Southend, when we're very much seen as a smaller club and other clubs too. Have you got your favourite 11 from the EFL this season, or your team this season?
No, I tell you what I did with this, right? So because you sent me a message saying, will you pick a Southend 11, right? And I'm in my head going, I don't have the ability to do that.
Southend are EFL, and I was like, hang on a minute, it might not be that hard when you work so many teams, especially, yeah.
But then I started, an all-time 11, I was like, I don't have that knowledge of Southend. I was like, easy, I'll just Google it. And then I thought, you're lying. If you Google it and just say it, you're lying, especially because, like, your all-time 11 would have to include stuff like, I was reading about your first ever manager and, like, these heroes, like, and if I came on to you and said, yeah, go for such and such. I mean, he was your first manager, and then he went off to manage another team for 27 years. But his son also played for you, and he was you'd be like, Google that, you knobhead. You don't know that. So I got your all-time players. It's it's. I know some just from interviews that have done so, like that I would say would probably be in your all-time, like Moody, obviously, but like Colin Moore was with you, and I've worked with him in the past. Obvious ones, Chris Powell. Roy McDonough played for you. I interviewed Roy McDonough once, and Southend came up in that. He made Vinnie Jones look like Jurgen Klinsmann. Like, he was tough as nails. I think he went out to work in America. I think he went to America in the end. That's when I interviewed him. But Roy McDonough is one of the toughest players ever to play football. And I remember we talked about playing at Roots Hall, which has got to still be one of the best places. Do you know, it's so funny. I haven't been to Roots Hall yet.
Really?
Can you believe that?
Wow.
No. I've been to, I would say I've been the most. I'd have to go through and have a look. I probably haven't been the most. But when you're 43, you see, Liam, even just supporting one team, teams get relegated and promoted. So you by default, if I look at the Championship, I've been to probably them all. And if I look at League One, I've probably been to 10, 12. Look at League Two, a bit less. But I always go and walk out. Well, not now, obviously, but I used to go. I do a lot of walking trips when I get a day off. So I'll go to a football match on a Sunday, and I don't really care who it is. So I'll go and see Evesham as much as I'll go and see Forest Green Rovers, or I'll go and see Hereford play because you can walk near there. You know, something I'll have to do when I can. What would be the game next season to go and see if it was not on a Saturday, because I can't go to any games on a Saturday? Leyton Orient.
Yeah, it had to be Orient or Colchester, I think.
Colchester.
The one as well.
I like Colchester, though, you see. I like Colchester United.
Right, that's the end of the video.
I know, that's a problem, right? So that show I got, the session in Northern Ireland, was an offshoot of the evening session, which was hosted by Steve Lamack, who's a Colchester United fan. So he took me to see Colchester United play a few times. Right. And then Clinton Morrison played for them. So I've had a few friends play for them, and I've had, and I have a couple of mates support them. So I've been to a few of their games, but there's nothing anti-Shrimpers about that. There's just, that's just the way it is. I don't support them, but that might be the one. I might go and see. I might see if he's going to call you, and then I'll sit in the home end. He can sit in the away end.
Because I think it's been almost like 6-7 years, I believe, since we last played them, and I think the atmosphere was unreal. I think it was a sellout.
Yeah.
If obviously crowds are back by then, it has to be like another sellout. Yeah. It's just an unreal fixture. Yeah. With Orient as well, I think it's such a close rivalry. I think they've always been up and down. We've sort of been a yo-yo team. A lot of people call us between League One and League Two. So yeah, that'll be a great game as well. Cambridge is a very good one as well, but unfortunately, obviously, we saw a few people took that out of hand with the attack on the Cambridge fan.
Oh my God,
yeah.
I was reading about that today. Yeah.
Yeah. So we do not condone any of that, but obviously that's a brilliant fixture as well. So yeah.
Well, I wonder, the one curse of football. I'm a big baseball fan, and people unfortunately look at baseball and say, "Well, there's no passion." There really is. There's just no violence.
Yeah.
Or little violence, comparative to soccer across the world, where and Boca Juniors and River Plate can't play and without there being sort of
some red
civil
cards
war
or something. Yeah.
It's like, and we get little windows of betterness, but like, passion is not segregation and violence. It really isn't. That's us. That's on us. We've made it that. I would much rather be able to go to football, say like that. I'd much rather be able to say to my mates that support Colchester United, right, we're going to go to Roots Hall. We're going to meet up with this kid, Liam. He's going to interview you. And then we're going to sit in the stands, and we're just going to sit you're going to sit in your scarf. I'm going to wear a Northern Ireland top. And then Liam's going to be wearing his Southend United top, and no one's going to have a problem. But unfortunately, that's not where we are. Does that make you more passionate because you have a problem with it?
Yeah,
no.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? It's not about passion. It's not passion. So, yeah, we're all guilty a bit. We're all guilty a bit of buying into the segregated culture of football. But I wonder will we ever get the day where we can have passion without that, But probably not.
No, obviously, yeah, some brilliant fixtures next season as well, and some games. We will be obviously covering some match interviews when they come out, so stay tuned on the channel for them. But for now, that's all for today. Colin, thank you very much for joining us today. I'll leave a link to Colin's socials in the description. Thank you
for not asking me for a prediction on where you finish next season, because even without coronavirus, I wouldn't have answered it. Yeah. I always hate when you get asked that question. What if you always make one prediction at the start of a season? So I made the prediction that Nottingham Forest would go up this year and they're going to be in the playoffs. But yeah, Coventry would do better. I said Coventry will do way better than people think because it's a better pitch and they've had a brilliant summer in signings.
That's brilliant.
Got that one right. I've done all right this year for predictions.
Yeah.
But I hate predicting months out what's going to happen. I could just say anything and you'd just be like, okay, fine. But I just fingers crossed that League One and League Two that we can do this in 3 years, and you can say, "Oh, can you come back on and do something for Shrimpers TV?" and we will have a league to talk about. That is all I predict needs to happen.
Yeah. So thank you very much for joining us. Like I said, I'll leave you a link to all of Colin's socials in the description and to the Mine charities, of course. And we'll see you all next time on Shrimpers TV. Thank you.
Thank you, mate.